What if the Saiyans defeated Frieza? How would the Saiyans even find a way to defeat him before planet Vegeta is destroyed? In this what if story, I'll be answering these questions and explaining how things would change if this were to happen. But before I start, I have to tell you that this isn't actually part 1, it's really part 2. So in order to get the complete context of this video, I'll link part 1 in the description below, or you could just scroll to my shorts section and view it very quickly. And don't worry, it's only a minute long, so it won't take too much time, and you can come back to this video right after. But anyway, continuing where we left off in the story, King Vegeta sees in a psychic vision that one day Vegeta will face off against Frieza, except not the Frieza he's familiar with. He's slightly taller, more sleek, and golden. He's not really sure what to make of this yet, but besides that, he also notices his son with blue hair and a weird looking aura.
You come from a strong bloodline and you possess the potential power to join the super elite of all Saiyans. Never forget where you're from and train very hard, my son. Because if you have proven yourself worthy, perhaps someday you will become a Super Saiyan.
Has Vegeta achieved what the king has always said his son will do? Regardless, one thing's for sure, the king is glad to see his son living up to his potential. The way Vegeta is easily handling Frieza, it's even better than what he predicted. He always knew his son would one day rise up to defeat him, maybe even become a Super Saiyan, but never suspected he'd do so easily. However, just before Vegeta is able to land the finishing blow, he notices another Saiyan rush into the scene, one with a strange orange outfit and blue hair just like his son. He proceeds to blast Frieza, stealing Vegeta's glory. This angers the king. Who does he think he is? And wait a minute, 2 Super Saiyans? No, that can't be it. In that case, whatever these forms are, it's definitely not Super Saiyan. Only Vegeta is worthy of that title. No way any other Saiyan could have achieved this power. And look at him profiting off of Vegeta's hard work, taking the win after Vegeta's already worn him down. Although the king won't admit it, he feels a small sense of pride in seeing a Saiyan put an end to Frieza. It doesn't hurt knowing at the very least Frieza gets his comeuppance by the people he used like tools and discarded like trash. Still, he feels robbed knowing his own son could have been the one to avenge them. But wait, hold on a second. There's something familiar about that Saiyan. Something in particular about his face and his hair. It just changed shape and switched to black. And looking at it now, he looks a lot like a low class. But that can't be right. A low-class warrior fighting alongside Vegeta? The king knows he'd never allow this. Although, weirdly enough, the Saiyan looks a lot like Bardock, a member of the crew he sent to invade 𝚗𝚙𝚎 2 years back. Come to think of it, he looks exactly like him, minus the scar. And with that, King Vegeta is left with even more questions than answers. However, he believes all of this is important information as it'll hopefully help him find a solution to defeating Frieza. If a low-class Saiyan is fighting alongside Vegeta, there must be a good reason for it. And so long as he can get to the bottom of it, he should find a way to achieve that power for himself. But where does he even start? The vision didn't give enough clues to figure out what exactly was going on. And although he tried his best to fully master the 𝚗𝚙𝚎's abilities, he could only get so much done without the Frieza Force getting suspicious. Thus, the research had to be cut short. However, what they have been useful for so far is letting King Vegeta know that despite all of his plans to overthrow Frieza, somehow planet Vegeta's fate remains the same. No matter what plan he comes up with, nothing the visions show seem to imply he succeeds in any of them. Still, he has to try. He has to come up with something or else the visions will be true and his people will be destroyed, leaving only his son and whoever that other Saiyan is to avenge them. And while he takes pleasure in knowing his son lives to fight Frieza, this doesn't completely satisfy him. He wants to at least try something instead of just accepting his fate. So, knowing there's at most only a few years left before Frieza decides to destroy the planet, the king makes orders for Bardock and his crew to finish up quickly in whatever mission they're on, as he wants them to return to the planet and meet up with the king as quickly as possible, as he has something important to discuss. Upon receiving this order, Bardock and his squad are confused, wondering what he could possibly want that he'd go out of his way to rush their mission and order them to meet up with the king personally. 𝚙𝚘𝚙 jokingly says maybe the king just wants to congratulate them for completing missions even most elites would struggle with. The others don't seem convinced that's the case, considering they were told it was something important. Tora suggests maybe it's another mission more important than the one they're on now. However, Bardock doesn't say a word and simply nods in agreement. Fasha knows Bardock's always been the stoic type, but also knows he's been even more so than usual. Ever since the mission on 𝚗𝚙𝚎, he hasn't been the same, almost as if he's constantly thinking about something, taking everything far more seriously rather than fully enjoying himself like he used to. So she pesters him, trying to gauge what exactly is on his mind. But Bardock refrains from answering anything. He insists it's nothing. He's just been bored is all. Bored from all the easy missions. He changes the topic back to what they were initially talking about and suggests maybe Tora's right. It's just another important task they're going to be assigned. And so he hypes up the group by saying how much fun they're going to have if that's the case. 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚎 and Bardock seem satisfied with this, but 𝙲𝚙𝚎 and Tora can tell something is up. Still, they don't continue investigating and just leave it alone. Once they finally return to Planet Vegeta, they're greeted by one of the king's guards and escorted to a private room with only the king himself inside. The king looks at all of them and thinks to himself, "It's as I thought. He looks just like the Saiyan fighting alongside Vegeta in the vision. There's no mistaking it. They must be related." The king asks everyone if they remember their mission to 𝚗𝚙𝚗 and if they've learned anything new since their invasion. The squad seems confused as to what exactly the king is talking about. They remember their mission, but learned anything new, they ask, trying to figure out what he's getting at. While everyone seems confused at the king's random question, Bardock is the only one who seems to understand what the king is getting at. The king notices this and actually orders the crew to leave the room and go about their later assignments, yet calls for Bardock to remain put. That was weird. What was the point of calling us all in, they wonder. It's as Tora and 𝙲𝚙𝚎 suspected. He was hiding something, and it seems the king knows what it is. But what is he hiding, they wonder. The king questions Bardock about what happened on 𝚗𝚙𝚗 and what he knows. After a bit of discussion, it's revealed that during their raid, Bardock was caught off guard and accidentally given the same psychic abilities the king has, and has been receiving similar visions of Planet Vegeta. And for the past 2 years, Bardock's been training to the best of his ability to eventually confront Frieza on the day of Planet Vegeta's destruction. The king is irritated by Bardock's explanation of accidentally receiving these powers, but doesn't confront him on the topic. He had hoped it was only him capable of this, as he won't admit it, but he's afraid of what could happen if a Saiyan were to get the idea of overthrowing the king with a power like this. The king's been aware of his fast improvement, and the rumors of him possibly surpassing the king one day. And although he laughs at the idea, he is worried about him having psychic abilities as well. Although maybe not as perfected as the king, since the king used his researchers to help him refine the abilities. Right before getting rid of them, of course, as he doesn't want anyone but himself to have knowledge of their abilities. But now he knows Bardock has them too. He's now somewhat of a concern. However, this is a situation that'll have to be dealt with another time, as there's still the matter of Frieza. But now that the king knows Bardock is aware of Planet Vegeta's fate, he doesn't hide the truth nor beat around the bush with his questioning. Not that he cares for his people's peace of mind, but rather so people don't cause a panic and accidentally let Frieza know that they're aware of his soon-to-be-made decision. The king asks Bardock about his family, as he wants to know who the Saiyan fighting alongside Vegeta was, and if he's certain about them being related. He explains that in his vision he had, it was a Saiyan that looked nearly identical to Bardock who defeated Frieza, and so, despite how much the thought irritates him, he theorizes the Saiyan must be a relative or even a son of his. Bardock seems to understand who the king is referring to, as he had a similar vision of his son Kakarot facing off against Frieza. You see, while during this time, Kakarot wouldn't be born for another 2 years in age 734, at least in the Super timeline, Bardock's visions of Kakarot influenced him to have his second son early. However, to both his and the king's disappointment, Kakarot was born with a horribly low power level, the lowest of the low class, so they both wonder how he could have possibly faced Frieza. With that being said, at the very least, the king now understands he was right about 2 things. The Saiyan in his vision is indeed Bardock's son, and was also unfortunately a low-class warrior. But this leaves him with another question. If Kakarot was the Saiyan he saw in the vision, what could have caused him to reach that level of strength? Surely no amount of training could have caused him to become that strong, so there must be another reason. The king asks Bardock if he's told anyone else of his visions, and what he knows of Planet Vegeta's fate. He tells the king that he hasn't, as he didn't want to start a panic before he could get strong enough to defeat Frieza himself when the day comes. King Vegeta thinks he's foolish to believe he could possibly train to surpass Frieza one day, and orders him not to do anything reckless without the king say so, or else he'd face severe consequences. He says in time he'll figure out a plan to defeat him, and he doesn't want him screwing everything up. And so he orders for Bardock to keep everything a secret just as he's been doing. With neither of them having the answer to defeat Frieza just yet, Planet Vegeta is still doomed to be destroyed soon. The king realizes this and comes to a desperate solution. If Kakarot is a low-class warrior just as suspected, then the only reasonable explanation for his strength could possibly be the planet he was sent to. Maybe that has something to do with it. That's all he has left to go off of anyway. So, despite his worries, he tells him that'll be all for now, and he can go back to fulfilling his duties. Bardock, on the other hand, doesn't think much of the situation. He's determined to take Frieza down with his own hands. No matter what the king says, he will change the future and he will defeat Frieza, not Kakarot, and not some scheme the king is cooking up. He leaves the room reuniting with his crew, and they ask ask him what happened and why the king needed to talk with him personally. He chooses to hide the situation from them just like before. He doesn't want anyone accidentally spreading the word about Frieza. But Tora and 𝙲𝚙𝚅 continue to pry as they've noticed something weird has been going on with Bardock for a while now. Eventually, they get him to finally say something about the situation at least. He says the reason the king wanted to know what they learned after 𝚗𝚙𝚅 was because he was trying to figure out if any of them had gotten their hands on any of the psychic abilities since their mission. He also mentions that the reason the king singled him out was because he noticed how much he was improving and wanted to promote him. The group seemed completely shocked by this. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Promotion? He'd go out of his way to call in a low class for something like promotion. Well, what did you say? Bardock continues to lie and say he turned down the offer as he likes sticking to his crew and didn't need some fancy promotion as he doesn't care about that stuff at all. Everyone seems convinced and pleased with his answer, but still Tora has a slight feeling that he's hiding something. He finally confesses why he's been acting strange though. He says it's because he hopes to defeat Frieza someday, and he's been putting all of his attention into training and improving himself to someday reach that goal. Again, they're blown away by the craziness of everything. First, the king personally asked to speak with him and promote him, but now he's saying he wants to defeat Frieza. But with something that extreme, Tora kinda believes him. And with that, while the king continues to search for the right plan, Bardock continues to train. With only a few years left before planet Vegeta's destruction, they both know that no matter what, they must find a way to save the Saiyans. But little do they know, only 2 years from now, they'll both find the answer they're looking for, but in a way they could have never predicted.